The AYN Thor right here is just a bit too good really, and that's exactly why it's become one of the most talked about retro handhelds lately. Now I've had mine for over 4 months, batch 1, and the initial excitement has completely worn off, which means this is where the real experience starts. What I really want to focus on is what it's actually been like living with it, what I've tweaked since day one, what I've played on it, and a few little things that still mildly annoy me. But the real test is simple. Do I still reach for it? And after 4 months of the Thor, would I buy it again? Stick around to find out. It's fair to say, this is a pretty nice looking thing. Now I'm definitely viewing it through slightly nostalgic 3DS tinted glasses, so I'm probably a bit biased. For anyone without that nostalgia, I'm not entirely sure how charming it actually is. What do you think? Does the clamshell design work for you, or am I just romanticising it a bit? What is hard to argue with though is the portability. It folds, but realistically, this isn't going in your pocket. It's more of a bag device, and folded up like this, it takes up hardly any space at all. The upside of that design is that everything's protected. You don't have to worry about scratching the screens or knocking the buttons about. The triggers, on the other hand, are living a slightly more dangerous life. While we're on the triggers, when I first received mine, the R1 button was actually a bit faulty. It would move forward a bit and get stuck every now and again. I reached out to AYN, and to be fair, they did send replacement parts straight away, but I had to install them myself. Now, considering this thing cost close to £300, that did feel a little bit poor. No apologies, no exchange, no partial refund, just the parts. I fitted them and it's been absolutely fine ever since. But it's the sort of experience that doesn't quite fill you with confidence as a customer, and it makes you think twice about going back to them in the future. Now, I went with the Pro version, which gives you 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. Honestly, if I had to do it again, I'd probably stick with 8 gigs of RAM. I hit my limit at Switch emulation anyway, so 8 gigs would likely be enough. And you save about $60 in the process, which seems sensible, doesn't it? If you're using it for Game Hub, then yes, the 12 or 16 gigs makes more sense. And the white colourway, I do slightly regret going for this one. It looks very clean, don't get me wrong, but because it's matte, you do find yourself handling it a bit more carefully than usual. I've already noticed the faintest marks from setting it down on darker surfaces. You do also get a bit of dirt collecting in the gaps, as well as lint and dust in the wells of the analog sticks. Nothing major, but I won't lie, the first time I noticed, my heart did sink slightly. If I could rewind, I'd probably go with my second choice, purple. Probably wouldn't have to baby it as much, and you wouldn't notice any marks the way you would with the white colourway. Happy to report though, the hinge on this has been perfectly fine so far. Over 4 months of opening and closing it every single day, I haven't noticed any issues, not even a single creak. So I'd say I don't have any real concerns with the durability at this stage in time. Now, one of the best tweaks I've done since getting the Thor is installing the ESD companion app, Emulation. It boots straight into the front end, syncs both screens, and the whole thing just feels and looks more like a proper console. I really like it because you basically never need to leave that setup. It even runs Switch through Eden via ESDE, so everything just lives in one place. One thing I did find a little odd though is that there's no default search option in ESDE. You can sort of add one though. If you go into Game Collection settings, then Automatic Game Collections, and enable all games, that creates a list of everything on the home screen, and from there you can just press select, filter the list, and search by game name. It's not the most elegant solution, and you do have to remember to clear the search field afterwards, otherwise it just shows the last results. It is what it is though. You can also create a collections tab on the home screen if you want. I've used it to separate games into different genres. It does take a bit of time to set up, but it's quite nice to have if you're not sure what to play and you just want to jump into a particular type of game. I've also been messing around with PS3 emulation on this, which has been interesting. It's a bit hit and miss if I'm honest. Some games actually run better than you expect. But at the end of the day, the emulator is still the bottleneck. So yeah, we're getting closer, but if PS3 is the main thing you want to do, you'll probably want something a bit more powerful. I've had better success on other handhelds. As far as Game Hub, it's not really something I bother with on the Thor, as I have the Legion Go S, so it's less of an appeal to me when I can just play PC and Steam games on this. Switch emulation has actually been pretty good using the Eden emulator. I'm currently running the 020RC1 build, and most of the games I want to play do actually work. Huntdown is one of my personal favourites on the Switch, as well as Marvel Cosmic Invasion. And if you happen to be bored of Balatro, give Poker Night at the Inventory a go. It was quite the surprise for me, having never heard of it. Overall though, the whole experience over the last few months has been pretty awesome. The thing I really like about the AYN Thor is that it's the perfect marriage between power and portability. Because it's never a hassle to take anywhere as well, I've got more game time in. It's basically turned into a backlog machine for me. I've completed Hitman Absolution on Switch recently, great game, and a few DS and 3DS titles as well. Currently, I've really been enjoying Xenotilt on the Switch, which is a pinball game that feels like the spiritual successor to Devil's Crush, that old classic on PC Engine. The mechanics are superb, and it's genuinely a joy to play. Also, Big Brain Academy on the DS. My daughter and I have been duking it out. And let's just say, I've been thoroughly humiliated. Quality father-daughter bonding though, right? Also, 007 Legends on the Wii U, one I completely missed out on at launch. It's probably one of the best first-person shooters on here. Playing it on Cemu has been a blast, and actually got me hyped for First Light. And thanks to the Thor's power, you can run pretty much any shader you fancy without it breaking a sweat. I've been running classic arcade games like Raiden Fighters 2 here, with a CRT consumer shader, and it looks fantastic. Battery life has been pretty decent as well. Hard to pin down an exact number because it really depends on what you're playing, but overall, it's been more than enough. For example, I left it on over a weekend after a full week of use, and it still had around 18% left. Even overnight on standby, the battery barely moves. Now in terms of comfort, it doesn't get too hot in the hands. The fan only kicks up noticeably in performance mode with something heavy like PS3 emulation. So after spending some proper playtime with the Thor, I thought I'd share a few thoughts for anyone still trying to decide if it's worth picking one up. A lot of that decision really comes down to one thing: DS and 3DS games. What a surprise. If you are looking for the best way to emulate those systems in 2026, look no further. It's been a lot of fun stepping back into both systems, especially with these dual OLED screens and upscaling. It generally makes those games look like remastered versions. Stylus play has been faultless too. Now there are a couple of things worth mentioning. The Thor is a fairly comfortable handheld, but it's never going to be as comfortable as a more traditional candy bar shape. You know, something more like this. This style naturally sits in your hands a bit better. The analog sticks on the Thor are also on the smaller side. They're a bit recessed as well because of the clamshell design, so they don't quite feel as nice as the sticks you get on a larger handheld, but they get the job done. Also, and this is pure nitpicking, I'm not the biggest fan of these buttons. They're a little clicky and the dampening could be better. The D-pad is also on the small side too. Fighting games are fine, but not the best experience. Also, the visible gap here between the lids when closed just eats away at my OCD. It does let dust and lint in, especially if you're carrying this around without a case, but it's nothing a cloth wipe won't fix. It does also feel a little on the fragile side as well, I've got to say. It's heavier than it looks, probably because of the glass panels, and while it does feel well put together, I wouldn't have much confidence in it surviving a drop at all. So it's definitely one you want to be a bit careful with. Oh, it also doesn't come with a stylus or case, so factor that in when purchasing. So yeah, if 3DS and DS are high on your priority list, and you want something you can just throw in a bag and travel with, this is probably one of the best options out there right now. The whole clamshell design just makes sense for that. You close it, it protects the screens, it's compact, job done. But if this is mostly going to live at home, on the sofa, or comfort matters more than portability, and you might only play a handful of DS or 3DS games, there are definitely some other good options around the same price. For example, something like the Retroid Pocket 6 comes in a bit cheaper, or stepping up slightly, there's the AYN Odin 3 or the Conquer Pocket Fit. And naturally, those are going to be a bit more comfortable for longer sessions. So after the honeymoon phase wore off for me, I started asking, do I actually play 3DS and DS enough to justify picking the Thor over something a bit more comfortable? Then add the fact that I already have the original DS and 3DS. The cogs in my head were already in motion. I mean, I do like having dual screens, even outside of 3DS, just for the option of running two things at once, maybe a YouTube video on one screen and a game on the other. But in reality, that's become quite rare now that the novelty's worn off. I tend to just focus on one screen, and I don't really use walkthroughs anyway. Honestly, once I've worked through most of the 3DS and DS games I want to revisit, I might consider moving to something a bit more comfortable, like the Odin 3 or the Conquer Pocket Fit. Because over time, I've realised portability isn't actually that important for me. I'm not really carrying this around in a pocket or jacket, so the size difference doesn't really make a huge impact day to day. And since this is mostly something I'll use on the sofa for longer sessions, comfort starts to matter a lot more. Right now though, for what I've been using it for, is being a really fun little machine. I don't regret picking it up one bit. If anything, it scratched that itch, so I'm not left wondering. So there you go, the AYN Thor, 4.5 months in. It's one of those things you can absolutely love, but still end up moving on from in favour of something a bit more comfortable. Bit like a relationship really. Anyway, I'm curious what you think. Do you prefer the more traditional candy bar style, or a clamshell? And if you've been an owner like me, what's your opinion on the Thor after living with it for a while? Let me know down below, I'll genuinely like to hear how other people are getting on with it. Right, I'm off to the toilet before my bladder explodes. Probably should have done that before I sat down to record this. If you have been, thank you very much for watching.